And welcome. I am Exolite, and this is my channel. Today we're going to talk about some of the United States' oldest cold cases. For those of you who are new or haven't seen this segment before, I'm going to tell you that for those cases that are very infamous, that everything that can be said has been said, as an example, a JonBenét type of case. We're going to skip those because I'd like to concentrate on the lesser known cases that aren't getting that kind of attention in the media. Okay, so before we begin, if you would please give this video a thumbs up and share it if you would. That really helps. And if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. And you'll be notified when my content goes live. All right, let's get going. Today we're going to start in Louisiana. O'Neal Moore was a major figure in the town of Vernado, Louisiana. He was a U.S. Army veteran. He was a leader in his church. He was a leader in his Masonic lodge. And he was a Parent-Teacher Association member. On June 1st, in 1964, he and Davis Rogers were hired as the very first African-American deputies in the Washington Parish Sheriff's Department, with the office heeding to civil rights leaders who were demanding across the South to fill law enforcement positions with non-white individuals. Just one day after they were hired, Moore and Rogers were on patrol and on their way to respond to a brush fire when a pickup truck pulled alongside their squad car and an individual in the truck's bed rapidly fired at the police officers. Moore suffered a bullet to the back of his head, and he died instantly. Rogers was shot in the shoulder and the eye, which he permanently lost use of. But he radioed in a description of the vehicle. It was dark-colored, it was a truck, and it was bearing a Confederate flag. At a civil rights protest rally after Moore's death, James Farmer, a national director of the Congress of Racial Equality, called the killing the Ku Klux Klan's bloody answer to those calls for more African American police officers. More than 50 local white residents were arrested for harassing and attacking black residents in the wake of the shooting. And even after the FBI and Louisiana State Police opened an investigation, Moore's murder was never solved. And now we're headed to Maine. The case of Kathy Moulton is the oldest unresolved missing persons case in the state of Maine. On September 24th, 1971, 16-year-old Kathy was preparing for a YMCA dance that evening, and she asked her parents if she could head into downtown Portland, Maine, to buy a new pair of tights. Her mother gave her permission and also asked her to grab some toothpaste and then to make sure she came home before the dance. Her father dropped her off, and after buying her items, Kathy met with a friend at a record shop, then started her walk back home at about 5:30 p.m. She never made it home. Portland police were initially reluctant to help. They wanted to wait the customary 72 hours for a missing person to show up. But Father Lyman Moulton urged them to act quickly, saying this was completely unlike his daughter. He also sought out the local branch of the office of the FBI, where agents dismissed the disappearance as a teenage runaway case. Then, a report came in that a girl matching Kathy's description was seen in a car with a boy in Portland on the night in question, but that lead was a dead end. The case was eventually closed, although reopened in 1983 when a hunter in rural Maine found remains of a teenage girl wearing early 1970s clothing. Unfortunately, when he went to lead the authorities to the site of his discovery, he couldn't find it again. A search of the area in 2004 yielded no results. And in Maryland, on the night of November 8th, 1954, 14-year-old Carolyn Wasilewski left her home in the Morrell Park neighborhood of Baltimore at 6:15 p.m. Carol told her parents that she was heading to a nearby trailer park to meet up with a friend and then onto the Morrell Park Elementary School to sign up for the winter dance. Carol, who also went by the name of Carol Wells, didn't reach the trailer park or the school. The next morning, a train engineer on the Baltimore to Harrison, Pennsylvania Express spotted a body on the tracks that ran underneath the bridge on Belvedere Avenue. It was Carolyn. According to post-mortem tests, she died about 11 p.m. from a skull fracture the night before. She wasn't killed on the train tracks, but rather a vacant lot 8 miles away, where police discovered some of her personal effects next to her blood. Her assailant then discarded Carolyn's body on the tracks after the last trains of the night. Baltimore police questioned around 300 people, but they never made an arrest. One of their most promising and suspicious leads was a man who was 45 years old, and his name was Ralph Garrett. Garrett had been spotted speaking to Carolyn not long before her death, but he hanged himself in a train car in a rail yard which faced the field where the teenager had been murdered, and still Carolyn's case sits unresolved. And in Massachusetts, Louis B. Allen, an alumnus and a chemistry professor of Massachusetts Westfield State College, changed the way Americans think about food and eat. In the early 1900s, he wrote a book called The Westfield Pure Food Book, a scientifically backed and thoroughly tested expose on the toxins and impurities found in commonly produced and consumed food items. Along with the Upton Sinclair's similar work, The Jungle, the book helped launch the Pure Food movement, leading to the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 and the birth of stringent government regulation of what Americans eat. Naturally, this all made Allen the enemy of industrialists and big food companies, which had to change the way they did business. He also reportedly angered the Nazis because he held a patent that they wanted, and he testified against an organized crime syndicate. So, not that popular at all, actually. Any number of people could have murdered Allen, who was found shot to death in his home in May of 1940, ironically, while reading a book called The Gun. Allen's is the oldest unsolved murder in modern Massachusetts and the only unsolved murder in Westfield. In Michigan, more than 50 years after his remains were recovered in the woods close to Trout Lake, authorities in Michigan are yet to uncover the identity of a man known to the state only as John Doe, or case number 83135205. His body was found on November 13, 1966, and testing suggests that he died sometime in 1965 or 1966. Also, that he was a white male about 5 feet 10 inches tall, and he was no older than 25 years old. Hunters had been stalking out a deer camp in a forested area several miles away from Trout Lake when they came upon the man's body on the footpath. He had very little identifying characteristics. Police cited buck teeth and that he was wearing a cowboy-style shirt with faux pearl snaps and blue jeans, whose pockets contained a mixture of American and Canadian coins. The deceased remains had almost completely degraded into a skeleton phase by the time of the discovery, leaving little for police to go on in terms of the death. Therefore, this murder is still unsolved. And our last one for today, Minnesota. Mary Schlaze was studying at the University of Minnesota in 1974 when she decided to go hitchhike to Chicago because she wanted to attend an art show. Hitchhiking was much more common in the 70s than it is today, and it's a practice Schlaze engaged in often, according to her family. She never made it to Chicago. and authorities later determined that she'd been killed just a few hours after she departed, and that she had been stabbed more than 15 times. A Minnesota man called police when he saw a man by the side of the road emerge from a compact car and throw what he thought looked to be a body into the ditch off a rural road. He helped a sketch artist come up with a drawing of the suspect, but no arrests were ever made of a viable suspect who matched the rendering. Schley's body was exhumed in 2009, and DNA testing uncovered physical evidence of her assailant, matched with a profile of Randall Woodfield, who was a failed Green Bay Packers prospect who went on to be convicted of one murder, although authorities believe that he probably killed more than 40 women who, like Schley's, were Caucasian, and they were of small build and in their 20s in the Pacific Northwest and Midwest. He never confessed to any crimes other than the one that he's serving a 90-year prison sentence for. So police in Dunn County, Minnesota, never formally interviewed him about the disappearance of Mary. Thank you for coming to my channel, and please give this video a thumbs up. There'll be more coming in this series of the oldest cold cases in the United States. Good night. Hello.